Okay, it's Sunday, August 28th. There's no overarching story today, but there's a number of really important updates to understand what's going on the ground in Ukraine. I'm going to start with the British Defense Intelligence update, and they're talking about a couple of days ago. The Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree increasing the armed forces to 1,150,000. That's adding, I think it was 137,000. They said nearly 140,000. The British assessment was that the decree is unlikely to make substantive progress toward increasing Russian combat power. The ISW said the same thing the other day as well. And this is because they've lost tens of thousands of troops, very few new contract servicemen are being recruited, and conscripts are technically not obligated to go. Like if they're conscripts, they don't have to serve outside of Russian territory. So for that, and being the ISW said, and being poorly trained, and we lost a lot of trainers in the actual combat because they pulled trainers into actual combat in the war with Ukraine. So, okay, let's look at the ISW. President Putin also signed two decrees on August 27th in a reported effort to assist stateless people and residents of Donbass in Ukraine live and work in Russian Federation. The first decree allows Donbass residents, Ukrainians, and stateless peoples, that's people who are Ukrainian but no longer view Ukraine as a state, um, to come to Russia. The decree also allows Ukrainian and Donbas residents to work in Russia without a permit as long as they have acquired an identification card within 30 days. So this is a move to get those identification cards to going. The second decree orders Russian social service to provide social payments, essentially a pension of 10,000 rubles, that's approximately $167, which isn't a lot, but it means more there than it does here. And a pension payments of 3,000 rubles, approximately $50, to those with disabilities or those over the age of 80, approximately 5,000 rubles, approximately $83 to World War II veterans. Okay, so the pulling people from Ukraine into Russia's orbit, it doesn't matter. They'll be put on a pension, but you're depopulating Ukraine at the same time. Okay, Russian forces conducted unsuccessful ground attacks or limited ground attacks here and there in the other place, and didn't do anything in Zaporizhia. Now, the ISW, I generally show you the deep state map. The ISW also has a map, and I want to show you something in their map as well, because it's kind of important to understand. So when you're looking at what's in like these red checkered squares, you'll see a kind of boxy look around it. So let me highlight this and get a little bit closer. Okay, so let's go up into Donetsk where you see this is contested area, and then what you see in yellow is Russian claimed area, but it's not, we were not sure that that's actually it. And what you see in blue is what the Ukrainians have taken back. Okay, and so this is kind of giving you a better picture of what has gone on over time. All right, let me keep going. So this is just a Ukrainian site talking about in the Sloviansk, Bakhmut, and Avdiivka directions, Ukrainian defenders have stopped the advance of Russian invaders, and they've stopped them in here and here and here, and they're shelling here and they're fighting here, and so it gives you a really good overlay of what's going on. And if you really want to see what's going on the ground, this would be a really good site for that kind of thing. This is the Guardian, day 187. So they're saying here's what's up for the next day. Volodymyr Zelensky, as Ukrainian president, held a secret meeting with representatives of Ukraine's defense and security sectors on Sunday. Not sure why that's news. He's supposed to be doing this. These meetings, I mean, everybody knows he's going to be meeting with them. Nuclear watchdog is waiting for clearance. Surprise! They're waiting for clearance for its officials to visit the plant. Now, Russia said, we demand that they come because the Ukrainians are shelling, and they still can't get in. Nor, to my knowledge, have they visited the POW site that got shelled a few weeks back. Yeah. Concern about potential risk of radiation leaks persists to the point that local officials were handing out iodine tablets yesterday. Ukrainians are likely to experience their coldest winter in decade. I understand that that's going to be true pretty much everywhere. Even here where I am in the American South, I understand it's supposed to be the coldest winter that we're going to have for decades as well. So I think that's going to be very bad for everybody involved if that turns out to be the case. Well, except for Putin. Putin will enjoy having the coldest winter because it'll turn the screws on the West. Russia doesn't acknowledge radiological risk, and in a treaty, as they were putting together a treaty not too long ago, the Russian Federation alone decided to block consensus on a final document at the conclusion of the 10th Review Conference of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Russia did so in order to block language that merely acknowledged the grave radiological risk at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine. So they blocked that kind of language, even though they're the ones saying it's Ukrainians doing this, which seems odd that they would block that language if it was really Ukraine. Okay. Another one leaves the country. Dell, a computer firm in the United States that's had tremendous success, has left Russia. They said yesterday it had ended all operations in Russia after shutting its offices early this month. It's a key supplier of servers. Back in February, made the decision not to sell service or support products in Russia, and they finally closed all their doors. What appears like, at least for now, for good. It might change it later, but they're gone. Now that's interesting in light of this. Just a couple days ago, foreign companies suffer a total of $70 billion losses after they leave Russia. And this is in Pravda, and Pravda is making this big thing about this. Like, see how bad it is for these companies? Yeah, 70 billion is a lot of loss, but they couldn't take their buildings with them. They had to, if they were going to leave, they have to leave and leave their buildings and other assets there in the country. But they made the right decision. But you in Russia are drinking cool cola and street instead of Sprite and Coke. So, there's that. Okay, The Guardian again reports EU set to suspend visa travel agreement with Russia. And so they talk about this. The Financial Times was reporting, as a first step, ministers plan to give political support to suspending the EU-Russia visa facilitation agreement at a two-day meeting in Prague that begins on Tuesday. So it's coming up in just a little time. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I don't know that it's that good of an idea, and I'm all in supporting Ukraine against Russians' aggression. I'm not sure that it's a good idea, and I'll tell you why. As the more I read about it, the more I am somewhat sympathetic to the ideas of dissidents who are getting out of the country, who would otherwise be being sent to jail, being able to spread the message of what's actually happening within Russia. And so there's some value in that. Now, for the Russian, the average Russian who's just hanging out on the beach, enjoying their time somewhere in Europe, that's different. I kind of gag when I think of that. But now, also, Borrell was also saying this. This is the Voice of America. He was saying the European Union foreign ministers are unlikely to unanimously block a visa ban on Russians, as it would be needed to put in place such a ban. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell told Austria's some TV on Sunday. So, yeah, I think getting unanimity within the EU on this is going to be very, very difficult. And again, I'm not so sure it's that good of an idea. I get the spirit of it. I'm behind the spirit of it. But I also want dissidents to be able to get their message out in a meaningful way without being persecuted, to raise that awareness, especially as Western Europe is Western Europe is kind of divided between like a peace camp and a punish Russia and don't let them do it again camp. And the peace camp is who I'm worried about, that they're going to say peace at any cost as soon as Russia says, no, 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 we want peace. And then it will make the Ukrainians look like they're the aggressors when they've just carved off 20-25% of Ukraine's territory and said, no, 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 but we want peace. And so I want these Russian dissidents out in Europe flaming that fire to keep that from happening, which is what ultimately what Russia wants, is to carve up as much as they can. I just thought this was cool. I'm not going to get into the article, but I just like the visual of this thousands of Ukrainian flags to honor the soldiers fighting in Independence Square, and I just thought that was a great pick. Um, Fun with RT. They write the same article, I don't know how many times. The EU faces major challenges due to anti-Russia sanctions. But here they're just coming at that same article using Borrell's words rather than somebody else's. But this is lazy journalism. The EU will encounter major challenges due to Russian sanctions. Yes, because they did these Russian sanctions. See how it's boomeranging back on them? That's what the Breathless article says. He says, we've limited Russia's economic possibilities. As long as Russia's economy is dependent on oil and gas, they'll be needing our technologies. And then he acknowledges, of course, we are facing major challenges in the short term because of the sanctions, and there's no denying that the price of gas is rising. European citizens must be willing to pay the price for freedom because the war in Ukraine isn't only a war for Ukrainians, but a war for our freedom. And he goes on. And at the end, it talks about, at the same time, the energy crisis, which has been provoked by the sanctions of war, may trigger a recession in Europe, says the Economist magazine. So they're just getting some extra mileage out of that. Okay, that's all that I have for today. There was nothing major, but it's just kind of giving you a more detailed sense of the overall picture of what's going on. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you tomorrow.